The Vorkarian slaver ships descended on the Saturn colony like a swarm of locusts, their weapons slicing through the habitat domes and murdering Jerry Green's parents as they shielded him with their own bodies. But in the end, it wasn't enough. In the chaos, a Vorkarian trooper snatched the terrified 8-year-old boy and carried him back to the waiting ships. News spread like wildfire back on Earth. A human child had been kidnapped by an alien race thought to be an ally. By the time the Earth Defense Force intercepted the distress calls from Saturn, it was too late. The Vorkarians had already fled into deep space with young Jerry as their prisoner. Outrage gripped Earth. How dare these two-faced aliens betray humanity's trust and steal an innocent boy from his family? Within hours, the EDF declared a state of total war against the Vorkarian Empire. No mercy would be shown to the child snatchers. As trillions around the globe cried out for blood and vengeance, General Robert Anderson met with Earth's Leadership Council. Anderson laid out an audacious plan: assemble the largest space fleet in human history and pursue the Vorkarians to the ends of the universe if need be. An overwhelming show of force was required to get Jerry back safely and deliver retribution to his kidnappers. The Council agreed. Across the solar system, secret orbital shipyards roared to life. Thousands of massive EDF supercarriers, hidden from public view during construction, were brought to full operational readiness. Each supercarrier, dwarfing anything the Vorkarians could field, carried thousands of advanced fighter craft, bombers, tanks, artillery pieces, and millions of the finest EDF troops. Within a week, over 800,000 supercarriers rendezvoused in Earth orbit, casting vast shadows across the planet's surface. With the ships stocked and troops mustered, General Anderson gave the order to begin the pursuit. One by one, the supercarriers transitioned to hyperspace, speeding after the Vorkarian ships. As they watched the Titanic fleet depart, those left on Earth shared the same solemn thought. Would they ever see little Jerry Green alive again? Word of the unprecedented human counterattack spread ahead of the fleet. The Vorkarian Supreme Leader was incredulous. How could the primitive Earthlings assemble such a massive armada so quickly? He had been assured that the humans were decades away from fielding ships that could threaten the Empire. But the proof was undeniable. Long-range scans showed the human fleet would arrive at the edge of Vorkarian space far sooner than anyone believed possible. The Supreme Leader glared down at the unconscious human child at his feet, prodding it with a razor-sharp claw. This small, pathetic creature had caused all this trouble, but it would be worth it. By dissecting the boy and learning the secrets of the human body, the Vorkarians could create bioweapons to easily conquer Earth. He turned to Keed, the young soldier guarding the child. "Take this mewling whelp to the biolabs. Prepare it for experimentation at once." Keed hesitated. This didn't seem right somehow. When he signed up to fight, he thought he would be facing enemy soldiers, not helpless kids. He looked down at the boy who was starting to wake up. Large, frightened eyes stared back at Keed. In halting Vorkarian, the boy pleaded, "Please, I just want to go home. Don't hurt me." Before Keed could respond, alarms suddenly screamed throughout the station. On the view screens, Keed saw a sight he could barely comprehend, an endless sea of human warships appearing at the edge of Vorkarian space in a blaze of Cherenkov radiation. A human face filled the screen, an older male, wearing a uniform encrusted with metals. When he spoke, his voice was cold and merciless. "This is General Robert Anderson of the Earth Defense Force. You have committed an act of war by abducting our child. You have 1 hour to return him unharmed. Fail to comply, and we will wipe your species from the face of the galaxy." The Supreme Leader rose from his throne, eyes blazing with fury. He would not let some presumptuous apes threaten him. He would destroy their pathetic fleet and mount this general's head on his wall. But as he studied the tactical readouts more closely, the Supreme Leader felt icy claws of dread grip his hearts. The humans had over 800,000 capital ships, and based on their energy signatures, each one was more powerful than anything ever seen before. Against a force like that, the Supreme Leader collapsed back into his seat, trembling. They didn't stand a chance against the human armada, and he had foolishly underestimated them by stealing their child. The entire Vorkarian species would pay the price for his arrogance. In the labs, Kaid watched silently as the scientists prepped their tools, the boy whimpering in fear on the operating table. When the first glinting instrument lowered toward the child's flesh, Kaid knew he couldn't stand by any longer. His hand flashed to his holster. Kaid didn't know if the humans would show mercy once they attacked. He didn't know if the Vorkarian race deserved to survive at all after stooping to kidnapping children, but as a soldier, he still had his honor. He would protect this boy with his life, even if it was from his own monstrous kind. Kaid's hand flashed to his holster, drawing his weapon in one fluid motion. The scientists froze, their instruments hovering inches from Jerry's skin. "Step away from the boy," Kaid growled, his voice low and dangerous. The lead scientist snarled, baring razor-sharp teeth. "You dare interfere with the Supreme Leader's orders?" Kaid didn't hesitate. He fired, the energy blast catching the scientist square in the chest. The others scattered, diving for cover. Jerry sat up, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Kaid rushed to his side, slicing through the restraints with a vibroblade. "Come on, kid, we're getting out of here." Alarms blared as Kaid led Jerry through the twisting corridors of the station. Twice they encountered security patrols. Kaid dispatched them efficiently, his military training kicking in. They reached a hangar bay just as the first wave of human ships burst into the system. Through the force field, Kaid saw thousands of vessels materialize in a blinding flash of Cherenkov radiation. "We need to move fast," Kaid said, ushering Jerry toward a small transport. "Your people are here." As Kaid prepped the ship for launch, General Anderson's face appeared on view screens throughout the station. His ultimatum echoed through the halls, sending waves of panic through the Vorkarian ranks. Kaid punched the throttle, rocketing out of the hangar amid a hail of defensive fire. He weaved through the chaos of battle, watching in awe as human fighters tore through Vorkarian squadrons with ease. "This is Kaid of the Vorkarian military," he broadcast on an open channel. "I have the human child and wish to return him safely, requesting permission to dock." There was a long pause. Kaid held his breath, acutely aware of the targeting systems locking onto his small craft. Finally, a gruff voice responded. "Permission granted. Approach Vector 227 Mark IV. Any deviation will result in immediate termination." Kaid followed the instructions precisely, guiding the transport into a massive hangar bay on the human flagship. As soon as they touched down, they were surrounded by heavily armed troops. General Anderson strode forward, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "Hand over the boy, now!" Kaid raised his hands in surrender, gently nudging Jerry forward. "I'm sorry for what my people have done. This was wrong. I hope returning him can prevent further bloodshed." Jerry ran to Anderson, who knelt down and embraced the boy. "You're safe now, son. We're taking you home." As Kaid was led away in restraints, Jerry called out, "Wait! He saved me! He's not like the others!" Anderson's eyes narrowed, studying Kaid intently. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A junior officer rushed to the general's side, face pale. "Sir, we're detecting a massive energy buildup from the Vorkarian orbital platform. They're targeting us directly." Kaid's head snapped up. "The Sunbreaker cannon. It can tear this ship apart in seconds." Anderson barked orders, coordinating an immediate evacuation. As crew members scrambled, he turned to Kaid. You know that station?" Kaid nodded. "Every deck." "Then you're coming with us," Anderson said, his voice like steel. "We're going to shut that thing down before it can fire." Within minutes, Anderson had assembled an elite strike team. They boarded a stealth shuttle, Kaid providing critical intel as they approached the massive orbital platform. "The main control room is here," Kaid said, pointing to a holographic display. "But it's heavily guarded. We'll need to fight our way through." Anderson nodded grimly. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." The shuttle docked with the station, and the strike team poured out, weapons at the ready. Kaid led the way, guiding them through service tunnels and maintenance shafts. They encountered fierce resistance. Vorkarian troops fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction. But the human soldiers were relentless, their advanced weaponry and armor giving them a decisive edge. As they neared the control room, Keed felt a pang of regret. These were his people he was fighting against. But one look at Anderson's determined face reminded him of the stakes. This was the only way to prevent genocide. They breached the final set of blast doors, erupting into the control room in a hail of gunfire. Keed raced to the main console, fingers flying over the alien controls. 30 seconds to firing, he shouted. Anderson joined him at the console. Can you stop it? Keed's hearts raced as he worked furiously to override the firing sequence. I'm trying, but the fail-safes... A stray shot hit the console, showering them with sparks. Keed stumbled back, clutching his wounded arm. Anderson grabbed him by the shoulders. Is there any other way to stop this thing? Keed's eyes widened as realization struck. The power core. If we overload it, the whole station will go dark. Show me, Anderson commanded. As they sprinted toward the reactor room, Keed prayed they would make it in time. The fate of two species hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking down to 0. The strike team burst into the control room, plasma rifles blazing. Vorkarian soldiers fell left and right as the humans advanced. Keed ducked behind a console, firing his weapon with deadly accuracy. Watch your 6, he shouted, taking down a Vorkarian sneaking up on a human soldier. General Anderson nodded gratefully. Nice shot. As the last defender fell, the team secured the room. Anderson strode to the main computer terminal, his face grim. All right, Keed, what are we looking at here? Keed's fingers flew over the alien controls. His eyes widened in horror as he read the data streaming across the screen. By the moons of Vorkar, they were experimenting on the boy, trying to create some kind of hybrid super soldier. What? Anderson leaned in, studying the diagrams and reports. Combining human and Vorkarian DNA? Those bastards? It gets worse, Keed said. The Supreme Leader plans to use this technology to create an unstoppable army. He wants to conquer the entire galaxy. Anderson's eyes hardened. Not if we have anything to say about it. Wipe that data. All of it. Keed nodded, initiating the deletion sequence. Suddenly, alarms blared. The doors burst open as the Supreme Leader himself stormed in, flanked by heavily armed guards. Stop them! The Vorkarian leader roared. Chaos erupted. Anderson tackled the Supreme Leader. The two locked in vicious hand-to-hand combat. Around them, humans and Vorkarians clashed in a desperate struggle. Kaid fought alongside the strike team, his loyalty to their cause now unshakable. He took a hit to the shoulder but kept fighting, persistence etched on his alien features. The battle raged on, both sides taking heavy losses. Anderson and the Supreme Leader traded brutal blows, neither able to gain the upper hand. Suddenly, the Vorkarian leader saw an opening. His clawed hand plunged toward Anderson's exposed neck. No! Keed cried out, throwing himself between them. The Supreme Leader's strike caught Kaid full in the chest. He collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. Anderson used the momentary distraction to launch a final, desperate attack. His fist connected with the Supreme Leader's head, snapping it back with a sickening crack. The Vorkarian tyrant crumpled to the floor, dead. With their leader fallen, the remaining Vorkarians quickly surrendered. Anderson knelt beside Kaid, cradling the dying alien's head. Why? The general asked softly. Keed coughed, blue blood staining his lips. Because it was right. I'm sorry for what we've done. Please end this conflict. Find peace. Anderson clasped Kaid's hand. I swear it. Your sacrifice won't be in vain. As Keed's eyes closed for the final time, Anderson stood, his face set with dogged dedication. There was still work to be done. The dust settled on the orbital platform as General Anderson surveyed the aftermath. Bodies of both humans and Vorkarians littered the control room, a grim reminder of the cost of their victory. But there was no time to mourn. The real work was just beginning. Weeks passed in a blur of tense negotiations. Anderson found himself spending more time in stuffy conference rooms than on the bridge of his ship. The remaining Vorkarian leaders, shaken by their defeat, seemed eager to broker peace. but whispers of dissent echoed through the halls of power. "They're stalling," growled Captain Harris, Anderson's right-hand man. "Buying time to regroup." Anderson nodded grimly. "Keep our forces on high alert. This isn't over yet." His instincts proved correct. Reports trickled in of Vorkarian ships vanishing from their assigned sectors. Weapons caches emptied overnight. And at the center of it all, Admiral Vrath, a hardliner known for his brutal tactics. On Earth, Jerry Green struggled to readjust to normal life. Nightmares plagued his sleep, filled with memories of cold metal tables and glinting scalpels. But amid the darkness, a spark of hope remained. He couldn't forget Kaide's final words, the aliens' dying wish for peace between their peoples. Jerry threw himself into studying Vorkarian culture and language. When General Anderson approached him about joining the new embassy, the boy didn't hesitate. "I want to make a difference," Jerry said, his voice stronger than it had been in months. "For Kaide." The journey to the Vorkarian capital was meant to be a fresh start. Jerry sat in the diplomatic shuttle, nervously fiddling with his new uniform. Beside him, Ambassador Chen reviewed last-minute briefing notes. The first explosion caught everyone off guard. Alarms blared as the shuttle rocked violently. Through the viewport, Jerry saw sleek Vorkarian fighters swarming their position. The EDF escort vessels moved to intercept, energy weapons blazing. "Get to the escape pods!" shouted Captain Reeves, the head of their security detail. Jerry stumbled through smoke-filled corridors, ducking as another blast rocked the ship. He helped Ambassador Chen into a pod, then turned back to make sure everyone else was evacuating. That's when he saw them, Vorkarian boarding craft latching onto the hull. "Go!" Jerry yelled to Chen, slamming the pod's launch controls. He sprinted toward the nearest weapons locker, heart pounding. But he was too late. The bulkhead exploded inward, and heavily armed Vorkarians poured through the breach. Jerry raised his hands slowly, recognizing the futility of resistance. A towering Vorkarian, scales gleaming blood red in the emergency lighting, stepped forward. "Hello again, little human," Admiral Vrath purred. "Did you miss us?" Across the galaxy, General Anderson pounded his fist on the war room table. "How the hell did they get past our security net?" The holographic display showed the aftermath of the ambush. Debris from destroyed EDF ships drifted silently in the void. The diplomatic shuttle was gone, towed away by Vrath's strike force. "Sir," a communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's Admiral Vrath." The Vorkarian's scarred face filled the main screen, mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among his kind. "General Anderson, I believe I have something that belongs to you." The camera panned to reveal Jerry and the other hostages, bound and terrified. "You have 24 hours to withdraw all EDF forces from Vorkarian space," Vrath growled, "or I start executing prisoners." The transmission cut off, leaving stunned silence in its wake. Anderson's mind raced. They couldn't abandon their newfound allies to Vrath's faction. But neither could they leave Jerry and the others to die. There had to be another way. "Sir," a young lieutenant spoke up, "I think I found something." On the tactical display, a tiny blip appeared, a distress beacon hidden among the wreckage of the battle. "It's Vorkarian," the lieutenant explained, "but it's not on any of their standard frequencies." Anderson leaned in, hope kindling in his chest. "Can you trace it?" The lieutenant nodded. "To an asteroid belt in the Omega sector, heavily fortified." "That's where they'll be holding the hostages," Anderson said. He turned to his staff. "I want our best infiltration team ready in 1 hour. We're going in." As the EDF mobilized, an unexpected ally emerged. Krav, a young Vorkarian soldier, approached Anderson with vital intelligence. "I served under Vrath," Krav said, scales rippling with disgust. "I know how he thinks, how he builds his fortresses. I want to help." Anderson studied the alien, seeing echoes of Kaide's courage. "Welcome aboard, soldier." The strike team assembled in the hangar bay. Anderson addressed them, his voice grim but determined. This mission is volunteer only, he said. We're going up against impossible odds to save not just our people, but the future of human-Vorkarian relations. I won't order anyone to... He was cut off by a chorus of voices, human and Vorkarian alike, all volunteering as one. Anderson nodded, pride swelling in his chest. Then let's go get our people back. The infiltration craft rocketed toward the asteroid base, cloaking fields engaged. Inside, the strike team made final preparations. Krav briefed them on Vrath's defenses while EDF tech specialists pored over schematics. As they approached the asteroid, a sudden burst of comm chatter caught their attention. "This is Vorkarian Special Forces," a gruff voice announced. "We're already inside the base, ready to assist on your signal." Anderson grinned. It seemed their allies in the Vorkarian capital had been busy too. The assault began with perfect synchronization. EDF ships launched a feint attack on the base's main hangar, drawing Vrath's forces to defend against a frontal assault. Meanwhile, the strike team slipped in through a maintenance airlock, guided by Krav's insider knowledge. Alarms blared as they fought their way deeper into the base. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, leaving scorch marks on metal walls. The combined human-Vorkarian team moved with precision, covering each other's backs as they advanced. "The detention block is 2 levels down," Krav shouted over the din of battle. They reached a heavily fortified blast door. Beyond it lay Jerry, the other hostages, and a confrontation that would shape the future of 2 species. Anderson readied a breaching charge, his finger hovering over the detonator. "On my mark," he growled. 3, 2, 1. Anderson's finger paused on the detonator. 1. The blast door exploded inward, raining chunks of metal. Through the smoke, the strike team surged forward, weapons at the ready. They found themselves in a large chamber. Vrath stood at the center, surrounded by hostages bound to chairs. Jerry's eyes widened as he saw the strike team burst in. "Not another step!" Vrath roared, pressing a blaster against Ambassador Chen's head. Anderson raised his hand, signaling the team to hold position. "It's over, Vrath. Let them go." The Vorkarian admiral's mandibles clicked furiously. "Never! I'll kill them all before I surrender." Krav stepped forward, his scales rippling with tension. "Admiral, please, this madness must end." As they spoke, Jerry worked frantically at the restraints binding his wrists. He felt them loosen slightly. Vrath's eyes darted between the humans and his former subordinate. "Traitor, you side with these mammals?" "I side with peace," Krav replied steadily. Jerry managed to slip one hand free. He caught Anderson's eye and gave a barely perceptible nod. "Last chance, Vrath," Anderson growled. "Stand down now." The Admiral's finger tightened on the trigger. In that instant, Jerry sprang into action. He lunged forward, tackling Vrath's legs. The blaster discharge went wide, scorching the ceiling. Chaos erupted. The strike team swarmed forward as Vrath's guards opened fire. Plasma bolts crisscrossed the chamber. Jerry rolled away from the melee, scrambling to free the other hostages. Anderson and Krav fought side by side, human and Vorkarian moving in perfect sync. They cut through Vrath's defenses, steadily pushing toward the center of the room. "Jerry, get them out of here!" Anderson shouted over the din of battle. The boy nodded, helping Ambassador Chen to her feet. He led the freed hostages toward the exit, ducking under stray shots. Vrath snarled in fury as he saw his prisoners escaping. He raised his blaster, aiming at Jerry's back. Before he could fire, Krav slammed into him, sending them both crashing to the floor. The 2 Vorkarians grappled, claws raking across scales. Vrath was larger, but Krav fought with the passion of one defending a righteous cause. He pinned the Admiral, pressing a knee into his chest. "It's finished," Krav hissed. Vrath glared up at him, hatred burning in his alien eyes. Then, with shocking speed, he reached for a concealed weapon. Krav reacted instantly, twisting the Admiral's arm. There was a sickening crack. Vrath howled in pain and fury. "Kill me then, traitor!" Krav shook his head. "No, you'll face justice for your crimes." As the last of Wrath's forces were subdued, Anderson approached. He nodded approvingly at Krav before turning his attention to the captured admiral. "Where are the others?" Anderson demanded. Wrath spat defiantly. "You're too late. My loyal followers are already—" An alarm klaxon cut him off, red emergency lights bathing the chamber. A computerized voice echoed through the base. "Warning. Self-destruct sequence initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately." Anderson grabbed Wrath by his collar. "What have you done?" The Admiral's mandibles spread in a grotesque approximation of a smile. "If I can't have this base, no one will." Krav's eyes widened in horror. "We need to move, now." They sprinted from the chamber, dragging the protesting Wrath with them. As they raced through winding corridors, the voice continued its ominous countdown. 10 minutes until detonation. Anderson keyed his comm unit. "All teams, fall back to extraction point immediately. This place is gonna blow." They burst into the main hangar bay, joining the flood of evacuating strike team members and freed hostages. Jerry stood by the shuttle ramp, waving them on urgently. 5 minutes until detonation. The last of the strike force piled into the shuttles. Engines roared to life as they lifted off, rocketing away from the doomed asteroid base. Jerry pressed his face to the viewport, watching as the distance grew. Suddenly, a blinding flash lit up space. The shockwave hit moments later, rattling the shuttle violently. When the view cleared, only a spreading field of debris remained where the base had been. Jerry let out a shaky breath, the reality of their narrow escape sinking in. Anderson placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You did good in there, son." Jerry nodded, his voice quiet. "What happens now?" The general's face hardened as he glanced at the sullen Wrath, secured in the shuttle's holding area. "Now," Anderson said, "we make sure this never happens again." Days later, Jerry stood at attention in a gleaming new facility. Humans and Vorkarians alike filled the assembly hall, a testament to the fragile alliance they had forged. General Anderson stepped up to the podium, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "Today, we take the next step toward lasting peace between our peoples. I present to you the Joint Security Task Force." Applause filled the hall. Jerry felt a swell of pride as he looked at the mixed ranks of human and Vorkarian personnel. His gaze fell on Krav, standing tall among his new comrades. As the ceremony concluded, Anderson approached Jerry with a small box in his hands. "Congratulations, Lieutenant Green," the general said, affixing a new insignia to Jerry's collar. "Welcome to the task force." Jerry saluted crisply, his voice steady. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." Anderson nodded approvingly. "I know you won't. Now let's get to work. We've got a galaxy to protect." As Jerry followed the general out, he felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face whatever came. For Kaid, he thought, for peace. The young lieutenant stepped forward, prepared to write the next chapter in human Vorkarian history. Jerry Green stood at attention in the Joint Security Task Force's command center, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. The room buzzed with activity as human and Vorkarian personnel worked side by side, analyzing data streams and coordinating operations. "Lieutenant Green," General Anderson's voice cut through the noise. "Report." Jerry turned to face his commanding officer. "Sir, we've intercepted communications indicating a cell of Wrath's loyalists has regrouped on a mining outpost in the Zeta 9 asteroid belt." Anderson's brow furrowed. "How many?" "Initial estimates suggest at least 50 combatants, sir. They're led by Holler, Wrath's former second-in-command." The general nodded grimly. "And their capabilities?" Jerry tapped a control panel, bringing up a schematic of the outpost. "They've fortified key positions and are stockpiling weapons. Intel suggests they may be planning another insurrection." Vorkarian High Officer Krax stepped forward, his scales rippling with concern. "We cannot allow this threat to grow unchecked." "Agreed," Anderson said. He turned to Jerry. "Assemble a strike team. You'll infiltrate the outpost and neutralize this threat before it escalates." Jerry saluted crisply. "Yes, sir." Hours later, Jerry found himself aboard a nondescript supply freighter, approaching the asteroid outpost. He glanced at Krav, seated beside him in the cramped cargo hold. "Ready?" Jerry asked. Krav's mandibles clicked softly. "Always." The freighter docked without incident. As the airlock cycled, Jerry's team moved swiftly, blending in with the bustle of dock workers and miners. They split into pre-assigned groups, each with a specific objective. Jerry tapped his communicator, disguised as a simple wristband. "All teams report status." A series of quiet acknowledgments came through. Everything was proceeding according to plan, until it wasn't. "Yeah, Team 3, repeat that last," Jerry hissed, pressing the communicator closer to his ear. "I said we've got a problem, sir," the voice crackled back. "This place is crawling with hostiles, way more than we anticipated." Jerry's mind raced. They needed a new plan, fast. He caught Krav's eye and nodded towards a maintenance hatch. Once inside the narrow service corridor, Jerry addressed his team. "Change of plans. We're going to create a diversion to draw out Huller's forces. Team 2, I want you to—" A sudden explosion rocked the station. Alarms blared as emergency lighting bathed the corridor in a pulsing red glow. "Looks like someone beat us to it," Krav growled. Jerry's communicator erupted with chatter. Huller's forces were scrambling to respond to the unexpected threat. It was now or never. "All teams, move on the main hangar," Jerry ordered. "That's where they're keeping their weapons cache." They fought their way through the chaos-filled corridors. Plasma bolts sizzled past, leaving scorch marks on metal walls. The mixed human-Vorkarian team moved with practiced precision, covering each other as they advanced. As they neared the hangar, resistance stiffened. Jerry ducked behind a bulkhead as return fire intensified. He spotted a Vorkarian renegade taking aim at Krav's exposed flank. "Krav, down!" Jerry shouted, squeezing off a rapid burst from his rifle. The renegade fell, but more took his place. The firefight raged on, neither side willing to give ground. Jerry's team slowly pushed forward, securing the hangar inch by bloody inch. Just as victory seemed within reach, a roar of engines filled the air. "Sir!" one of Jerry's team called out. "Huller and his inner circle are escaping." Through the haze of battle, Jerry saw a cargo hauler lifting off, its thrusters glowing hot as it rocketed out of the hangar. "Damn it," Jerry snarled. He keyed his communicator. "Control, we need pursuit craft immediately." "Acknowledged, Lieutenant," came the reply. "Outpost interceptors are prepped and waiting. Happy hunting." Jerry turned to Krav, a grim smile on his face. "You up for a little space chase?" Krav's mandibles spread wide. "I thought you'd never ask." They sprinted for the interceptors, leaving the rest of the team to mop up the remaining resistance. As Jerry strapped himself into the sleek craft, he allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. The hunt was on. Jerry's interceptor screamed through space, engines straining as he pursued Huller's fleeing cargo hauler. The chase was short-lived. Within minutes, a crackling transmission from General Anderson changed everything. "Lieutenant Green, abort pursuit, new intel. Admiral Vrath has resurfaced." Jerry's blood ran cold. "Sir?" "Vrath's rallying his loyalists on a remote planetoid. He's after a Vorkarian bioweapon. Get back to base immediately for briefing." Hours later, Jerry stood beside Krav in the Joint Security Task Force's war room. General Anderson's face was grim as he addressed the assembled strike team. "This bioweapon rewrites DNA to match Vorkarian genetic markers. Vrath plans to use it to create a subservient human underclass. We can't let that happen." Jerry studied the holographic display of Vrath's fortified base. "How do we get in?" "Advanced cloaking tech," Anderson replied. "You'll infiltrate the surface, then execute a multi-pronged assault." Days of careful recon followed. Jerry and Krav led the team through treacherous terrain, mapping defenses and planning entry points. When the attack finally came, it was swift and brutal. Plasma fire lit up the night as the strike team breached the perimeter. Jerry ducked behind a rocky outcropping, squeezing off shots at the Vorkarian defenders. Beside him, Krav moved with fluid grace, his own weapon spitting death. "Push forward!" Jerry shouted over the din of battle. They fought their way through layer after layer of defenses. the air filled with the acrid stench of ozone and burning flesh. Jerry saw good soldiers fall, human and Vorkarian alike. A massive explosion rocked the compound. In the chaos that followed, Jerry realized he and Krav had become separated from the main force. They found themselves pinned down in a narrow corridor, enemy fire intensifying. "We need to find cover," Krav hissed. Jerry spotted a sealed doorway. "There!" They sprinted for it, plasma bolts sizzling past their heads. Jerry's fingers flew over the access panel, and the door slid open. They tumbled inside, slamming it shut behind them. As the sounds of battle faded, Jerry took in their surroundings. Banks of computers lined the walls. Sealed containers filled with strange, glowing liquid dotted the room. "Krav," Jerry whispered, "I think we're in the bioweapons lab." Before Krav could respond, the door exploded inward. Vrath's troops poured through the opening, weapons raised. Jerry dove for cover, his elbow catching a container. It toppled, shattering on the floor. A noxious green mist filled the air. Jerry felt it burning in his lungs, setting every nerve on fire. Beside him, Krav let out an agonized roar. "Run!" Jerry gasped. They staggered deeper into the facility, alarms blaring around them. Jerry's skin crawled, an unnatural heat spreading through his body. He glanced at his hands, watching in horror as the flesh rippled and changed. "What's happening to us?" Krav groaned. Jerry's mind raced. "The bioweapon. We've been exposed." They stumbled on, their bodies twisting and reshaping with each step. Human and Vorkarian features blended in impossible ways. The pain was excruciating. After what felt like hours, they found themselves in a massive chamber. A single pod-like structure dominated the center, surrounded by blinking consoles. "Gene therapy," Krav rasped, his voice distorted by his changing vocal cords. "It might reverse the process." Jerry scanned the readouts, his heart sinking. There's only enough power for one treatment. They locked eyes, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Jerry moved to the controls. "What are you doing?" Krav demanded. "Saving you," Jerry replied, initiating the sequence. "Earth needs you, Krav. Tell them what Vrath is planning." "Jerry, no!" But it was too late. The pod sealed around Krav, bathing him in pulsing energy. Jerry watched as his friend's features returned to normal, even as his own transformation accelerated. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the chamber. Jerry turned to face the door, feeling new strength coursing through his hybrid form. He would buy Krav the time he needed to escape, whatever it takes. As Krav emerged from the pod, restored to his Vorkarian self, Jerry spoke one last time. "Go, stop Vrath, save both our worlds." Krav hesitated, torn between duty and loyalty. But in the end, he nodded, understanding the weight of Jerry's sacrifice. "I won't forget this," Krav vowed, before disappearing into the shadows of the base. Jerry turned to face the approaching enemy, his new hybrid body humming with power. He didn't know what the future held, but he was ready to face it. For Earth, for Vorkaria, for the future of both their peoples. The evacuation klaxon blared through Vrath's base as Krav sprinted down the corridor, his heart's pounding. Behind him, the rest of the strike team rushed to their extraction point, the sound of plasma fire echoing in the distance. "We can't leave him," Krav shouted, skidding to a halt and turning back. A human soldier grabbed his arm. "We have to go. The whole place is coming down." Krav yanked his arm free, mandibles clicking in frustration. He took one last look down the smoke-filled hallway before following his team. The image of Jerry, flesh rippling and changing, burned in his mind. "I'll come back for you," Krav whispered as the airlock sealed behind him. Days later, Krav stood before the Vorkarian High Council, his scales itching with impatience. "Honorable leaders, we must mount a rescue operation immediately. Lieutenant Green sacrificed everything to save me, to save us all from Vrath's bioweapon." Counselor Zax leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "And you say this human has been transformed?" "Yes," Krav replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. "The virus is reshaping him, merging Vorkarian and human DNA. But he's still in there. We can save him. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, High Counselor Vex spoke. I'm sorry, Officer Krav. The risk is too great. If this hybrid virus were to spread, we cannot jeopardize our people or our human allies. The answer is no. Krav's mandibles clicked in barely contained rage. He stormed out of the chamber, mind racing. If the council wouldn't help, he'd find another way. Hours later, Krav stood in General Anderson's office aboard the orbiting human flagship. The general's face was grim as Krav finished his report. Those spineless bureaucrats, Anderson growled, banging his hand on the desk. Green is one of our best. We don't leave our people behind. Krav leaned forward. Then you'll help? Anderson nodded. Damn right I will. We'll do this off the books. I'll assemble a team. Our best operatives, human and Vorkarian. We're bringing Jerry home. The next week was a blur of covert preparations. Finally, Krav found himself crouched in the cargo hold of a stealth shuttle, surrounded by a hand-picked team of elite soldiers. As they approached Vrath's planetoid base, General Anderson's voice crackled over the comm. Remember, people, this is a surgical strike. Get in, find Green, and get out. May God have mercy on anyone who gets in your way. The shuttle touched down silently in a remote valley. Krav led the team through winding canyons, evading automated defense systems. They reached a concealed entrance and slipped inside. The base's interior was a maze of shadowy corridors and flashing warning lights. Krav's senses were on high alert as they made their way deeper into the compound. Suddenly, an inhuman roar echoed through the halls. Jerry, Krav whispered. They found him in a cavernous laboratory. Krav's breath caught in his throat. Jerry towered over them, his body a monstrous fusion of human and Vorkarian features. Bulging muscles rippled beneath mottled skin, while razor-sharp claws extended from massive hands. Jerry? Krav called out softly. The creature's head snapped towards them, eyes glowing with an eerie light. For a moment, there was no recognition in that alien gaze. Then, Jerry's features contorted in anguish. Krav? The voice was distorted, barely human. Kill! Me! Please! Can't hold on! Krav stepped forward, ignoring the warning hisses from his team. No, my friend. We're here to save you. Fight it, Jerry. Remember who you are. Jerry's massive form shuddered. He clutched his head, letting out a bone-chilling howl. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the base. Intruder alert! All units converge on Sector 7. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as Vrath's soldiers poured into the lab. Krav's team returned fire, taking cover behind equipment and consoles. Krav! Anderson shouted over the din. We need to move, now! Krav ignored him, racing to a nearby computer terminal. His claws flew over the keys as he accessed the base's gene therapy systems. Cover me, he yelled. I need time to synthesize a cure. The battle raged around him. Jerry lashed out with terrifying strength, caught between his loyalty to his friends and Vrath's insidious conditioning. Krav worked frantically, acutely aware of every second ticking by. Finally, a vial of glowing liquid emerged from the synthesizer. Krav snatched it up, turning to Jerry. We need to get him into the gene therapy chamber. Anderson nodded, shouting orders to his team. They laid down suppressing fire, clearing a path to the chamber. Jerry, Krav called out. This way, we can help you. The mutated form of his friend lumbered towards them, fighting against the transformation with every step. They managed to guide him into the chamber just as a fresh wave of Vrath's forces breached the lab. The cure needs a full system reboot, Krav explained hurriedly. We'll be defenseless until it's complete. Anderson nodded grimly. Do it. We'll hold them off. Krav initiated the sequence. Energy crackled through the chamber as Jerry's massive form was bathed in pulsing light. Outside, the battle reached a fever pitch. Agonizing minutes ticked by. Krav watched anxiously as Jerry's body began to shrink, the monstrous features receding. Just as the process neared completion, a stray plasma bolt struck the chamber's control panel. Sparks flew as the system shorted out. The chamber door slid open, revealing Jerry's unconscious form, human once more, but deathly still. "He's not breathing," Krav shouted. Anderson appeared at his side, face streaked with blood and grime. "We need to get him out of here, now!" They carried Jerry's limp body through the chaos of the battle, fighting their way back to their extraction point. As they reached the shuttle, orbital bombardment began to rain down on the base. The small craft rocketed away from the doomed planetoid, Jerry secured in a hastily rigged stasis pod. Krav watched the silent form of his friend, willing him to survive. "Hold on, Jerry," he whispered. "Just hold on." The medical bay hummed with activity as Jerry's cryopod hissed open. Frigid mist billowed out, revealing his motionless form. Krav stood rigid, mandibles clicking nervously as human and Vorkarian doctors swarmed around the pod. "Vital signs stable," a human doctor announced, her eyes fixed on a holographic display. "Beginning thaw process." Krav watched intently as color returned to Jerry's pale skin. The Vorkarian's claws dug into his palms, leaving deep indentations. "Come on, Jerry," he muttered. "Fight." Days blurred together. Krav rarely left the medical bay, catching fitful moments of sleep in a chair beside Jerry's bed. He pored over data readouts, discussing treatment options with the medical team in hushed tones. "His cellular structure is unlike anything we've seen," a Vorkarian geneticist explained, gesturing to a complex molecular diagram. "The mutagen has fundamentally altered his DNA." Krav's mandibles clicked in frustration. "There must be something we can do." As hope waned, an alert blared through the station. Krav raced to the command center, where General Anderson stood before a flickering holoscreen. A cloaked figure appeared, features obscured. "I am Zrael," the figure rasped. "I have information you need." Anderson's eyes narrowed. "Why should we trust you?" "Because without me, your hybrid will die." Heated debates raged for hours. Krav argued passionately in favor of accepting Zrael's offer, while others counseled caution. In the end, desperation won out. Zrael and his team arrived under heavy guard. The renegade scientist wasted no time, diving into Jerry's case with unsettling enthusiasm. "Fascinating," Zrael muttered, examining tissue samples. "The mutagen's effects are far more extensive than Vrath realized." Days of feverish work followed. Krav assisted tirelessly, pushing aside his distrust of Zrael for Jerry's sake. Finally, a potential treatment emerged. "We can rewrite his entire genetic code," Zrael explained, eyes gleaming. "Purge the mutagen completely." The risks were enormous. Jerry might not survive the process, but it was their only chance. In a sterile chamber, Jerry's unconscious form lay surrounded by humming machinery. Krav watched from behind a force field as the procedure began. Energy crackled, enveloping Jerry's body. Alarms blared. Jerry's form contorted, muscles spasming violently. "His system is rejecting the treatment," a doctor shouted. "We're losing him." Krav surged forward, pressing against the force field. "Jerry, listen to me. You have to fight." He poured out everything. Their first meeting, their battles together, Jerry's sacrifice. As Krav spoke, the alarms slowly quieted. Jerry's vital signs stabilized. Hours later, Jerry's eyes fluttered open. He blinked, confusion etched on his features. Who am I?" Krav's heart sank. The treatment had worked, but at a terrible cost. Jerry's memories were gone. In the days that followed, Krav rarely left Jerry's side. He recounted their adventures, showed him images and video logs. Jerry listened intently, but recognition remained elusive. General Anderson visited, studying Jerry with a mixture of concern and hope. "How are you feeling, son?" Jerry straightened, a glimmer of his old self shining through. "Ready to serve, sir. Whatever I was before, I want to honor that." Anderson nodded approvingly. "We could use a man like you in our joint security force, if you're up for it." Jerry glanced at Krav, who gave an encouraging nod. I'm in, sir. As Jerry began his training, a tentative partnership formed between the Alliance and Zral's team. The renegade scientists, closely monitored, contributed their expertise to new research initiatives. Krav watched Jerry spar with a Vorkarian recruit, his movements fluid and precise. The human might not remember his past, but his spirit remained unbroken. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The uneasy alliance between humans, Vorkarians, and Zral's renegade scientists bore unexpected fruit. In a dimly lit laboratory aboard the Joint Research Station, Dr. Alara Chen's eyes widened as she pored over the decrypted data recovered from Vrath's base. "This can't be right," she muttered, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. "General Anderson, you need to see this immediately." Within hours, the station's command center buzzed with tension. Holographic displays flickered with terrifying images, entire ecosystems warped beyond recognition, grotesque hybrid creatures writhing in agony. "Project Oblivion," Zrael hissed, his scaled fingers tracing the schematics of a virus unlike anything they'd encountered. Vrath's ultimate weapon. General Anderson's face hardened as he absorbed the implications. A bioweapon capable of reshaping entire planets. This goes beyond anything we've faced. The news spread like wildfire, igniting fear and outrage across the fragile alliance. In the mess hall, Jerry overheard heated arguments between human and Vorkarian crew members. "We should strike first," a burly Marine shouted, banging his head on the table. "Wipe out any system that might harbor this abomination." A Vorkarian scientist, her scales flushed with anger, hissed back, "And risk spreading the virus further. Your short-sightedness will doom us all." Jerry's head throbbed as fragmented memories clashed with his sense of duty. He found Krav in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "We can't let this tear us apart," Jerry said, his voice low. "Not after everything we've been through." Krav's mandibles clicked softly. "What do you propose, my friend?" Jerry's eyes hardened with persistence. "We find the source. We destroy it, before anyone else can use it." Days later, a small stealth ship cut through the swirling gases of an uncharted nebula. Jerry, Krav, and a hand-picked team of specialists huddled around a tactical display. "Our intel puts the research facility here," Krav explained, highlighting a section of the hologram. "But these spatial anomalies make approach nearly impossible." Jerry studied the readouts, a plan forming. "We'll have to go in manual, no auto-navigation." As they neared their target, alarms blared. The ship bucked violently, nearly throwing them from their seats. "Gravimetric shear!" the pilot shouted. "We're losing stability!" Jerry gripped the controls, his muscles straining as he fought to keep the ship on course. Krav called out sensor readings, guiding them through the invisible maze of spatial distortions. With a bone-jarring thud, they touched down on a desolate asteroid. Before them loomed a nightmarish structure, a twisted fusion of organic growth and alien metal. "Everybody suit up," Jerry ordered, checking the seals on his armor. "We go in hard and fast, find the virus, secure the data, then blow this place to hell." They breached the facility's outer defenses, fighting through automated security systems and rogue defense drones. As they pushed deeper, the horror of Vrath's work became apparent. In a cavernous chamber, rows of stasis pods lined the walls. Inside, test subjects, both human and Vorkarian, writhed in silent agony, their bodies warped beyond recognition. "By the spirits," Krav whispered, his voice thick with revulsion. A sudden explosion rocked the facility. Klaxons wailed as emergency bulkheads slammed shut, cutting off their escape route. "Team 2, report!" Jerry barked into his comm. Static answered. "We're on our own," Krav growled. They fought their way toward the central core, acutely aware that time was running out. As they rounded a corner, Jerry froze. A shimmering field of energy pulsed before them, tendrils of sickly light reaching out hungrily. "The virus," he breathed. "It's already active." Before they could react, the floor beneath them gave way. Jerry and Krav tumbled into darkness, the screams of their teammates fading above them. They landed hard in a twisting corridor of biomechanical horrors. Fleshy growths pulsed along the walls, merging seamlessly with crackling energy conduits. "The others?" Krav asked, struggling to his feet. Jerry shook his head grimly. "We push on. We're the only chance left to stop this thing." They fought through waves of mutated monstrosities, each more horrific than the last. Jerry's muscles burned with exhaustion, his armor scored and dented. Finally, they reached a massive chamber dominated by a pulsing reactor core. And there, waiting for them, stood a nightmare given form. Admiral Vrath, or what remained of him, towered before them. His body, now a grotesque amalgamation of flesh, metal, and writhing tendrils, pulsed with unholy energy. "Welcome, brothers," Vrath's distorted voice boomed. "You're just in time to witness the birth of a new order." Jerry raised his weapon, every fiber of his being screaming to end this madness. "It's over, Vrath. We're shutting you down." The thing that was once Vrath laughed, the sound sending chills down their spines. "You still don't understand. I am Oblivion, and I will remake this galaxy in my image." With a roar of defiance, Jerry and Krav charged forward, ready to face their greatest challenge yet.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.